Welcome to the AMT Tech Trends Podcast, where we discuss the latest manufacturing technology and news. Today's episode is sponsored by Modern Machine Shop Made in the USA podcast. Today we have our content coordinator, producer, Ramia Lloyd.
Hi, Tech Friends. Who else first?
Myself, BMO, Director of Technology.
And Stephen LaMarca, AMT's technology analyst. You were second to speak, Ramia. How about that?
Woo!
We're gonna have to put that in rev.com. You have to let them know that you spoke before I did.
Steve, we've been talking about racing a little bit, and we got steered a question.
Yes.
EV Motorsports.
So in our podcast planning Slack channel, one of our incredible editors that keeps me employed mentions, you guys should bring up EVs. And we're like, I'd love to keep talking about auto racing.
Yeah.
Because last episode, I think it was last episode, maybe there was another one before that. Recently, we spoke about the 24 hours of Le Mans.
Correct.
And I, of course, would love to keep talking about that because EVs, there are a lot of EVs in motorsports. There's Formula E.
Yes.
Maybe there's not as many as I thought, but there's Formula E, but also in endurance racing and World Endurance,
yes.
In the World Endurance Racing or the World Endurance Championship, the WEC, which is an FIA regulated racing event that takes place all around the world with its capstone race, the Super Bowl of motorsport at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in the French countryside, the Pays de la Loire.
Do you still consider Formula One hybrid? Because they do have...
Formula One is high. I consider that hybrid too. You're absolutely right. That's technically... It's not exclusively EV.
Right.
Basically, I'm about to go on like a long rant, and we can probably skip it, just to say that I don't think EVs are the answer, and there's a lot of people that don't think EVs are the answer.
Yep.
But they definitely need to work alongside internal combustion engines.
So in terms of motorsports, I do see it's two different channels for motorsports, right? You have the pure entertainment audience, so I'm watching motorsports, and the technology development. In terms of me watching Formula E, that is some boring content.
Well, because it's like you're watching. It feels like you're watching Formula One, but you've gone deaf.
It feels they
don't make any noise.
Yeah,
there's no drama to the engines. There's a lot of drama in the racing, to be fair.
Yeah.
But there's also drama, if you go to your local go-kart track,
It's missing that full sensory experience, which you expect from motorsports.
Right.
But in terms of technology development, that's some pretty awesome stuff where using motorsports as a platform for technology development is useful. And you did make up a good point on motors and batteries that I want to hit on.
Yeah. So EVs, exclusively electric race cars, race vehicles, I don't think are developing technology that much.
Yeah.
Electric motors are, for what it's worth, are as powerful as they're going to get. They're only going to get so much better.
Sure.
But then again, we thought the same thing about the internal combustion engine. Maybe they need a little bit, but they already make an insane amount of torque at 0 RPM.
Right.
Where I have problems with electric motors is all of their power is from down low at slow speeds.
Right.
Their acceleration is insane.
Yep.
They're not known. Electric vehicles are not known for high top speeds.
They're not going to hit 200 miles an hour on the back.
And they're not going to sustain it.
Right.
They're not going to sustain it for the entire length of the Mulsanne Straight, assuming they removed the chicanes the way they did pre-2005 at Le Mans. But where there is a lot of technological development is in hybrids. Formula One uses hybrids. World Endurance Championship, the top tier level of racers, the prototype classes and the LMP1 classes, the prototype classes and the hypercar classes are hybrids.
And also, I do want to hit on that because there's a subtlety. So Formula One took a different approach for what you would consider hybrid. So consumer hybrid, you connect at the drivetrain, right? And then you switch it back and forth or complement at that power. But Formula One, they were driving compressors. They're driving different elements.
Right. They do drive the wheels.
Right.
But driving the wheels costs a lot in terms of weight.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you're not going to see a all-wheel drive Formula One car anytime soon. It would be too heavy. You never will. It's just too heavy. If they could, they would drive only one wheel.
Yep.
But it's just that's not going to deliver the power as well as it can. So Formula One cars will only ever be rear wheel drive only. But yeah, they use the electric motors on their turbocharged V6s to spin up the turbine faster. They use these massive turbochargers that would have the most lag in the world.
Yep.
But they use the EV to spin it up
Yeah.
artificially because there's just not enough gas pressure in the exhaust.
And I like that because it shows like different
It's really
approaches
cool.
to how you can take, they're looking at, lag and using physical components to offset for their gaps, their weaknesses.
Right.
And I thought that was fantastic.
And in the electric aspect, the part of the electric drivetrain that is developing, that we're seeing a lot of development in today, is batteries.
Yeah.
Battery technology. The problem with battery technology is we've recently found out, a bunch of, scientists and people have just found out already that the world, the Earth, has less natural resources to make batteries than we do. We're running out of battery material, natural resources, faster than we're running out of oil. we
consuming a lot.
keep hearing about how we're running out of oil.
So
and we still got a ton of oil.
there's a concept called a skateboard in consumer EV vehicles. So the battery pack is underneath the chassis. It's basically underneath the floorboard, the entire floorboard of the cabin.
Yeah.
So if you get a sense of scale of how big your battery is on a pure EV on a, let's say, 300 to 400 mile range vehicle, the entire underside of the car is a battery. So if you take all the resources required to build a battery for that, it's impressive.
And it's also it's energy dense.
Yeah.
Density. Like energy is roughly equal to mass. I'm not going to go through a bunch of equations right now, but it's roughly equal to mass. And when you need as much energy as you do to run these powerful EV motors that we have today, you need a lot of battery.
Yep.
And when you have a lot of battery, that means a lot of mass. The most strategic and best place to put all that weight is as drive the wheels when the gas engine can't do it. Or I'm a big fan of flywheels.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit biased.
We'll talk about where
the
that comes from.
downside to flywheels, because I really like that flywheels don't convert chemical energy. Like even a gas tank, even on an internal combustion engine, you have a gas tank which is storing kinetic energy as chemical energy because you're using a chemical to create a chemical reaction and turning that chemical reaction into kinetic energy. Flywheels are cool because it's kinetic. It's kinetic serving kinetic. It's kinetic delivering kinetic. Batteries are electrical energy, but also through chemical means.
I definitely agree that, through the motorsports, further developing of the hybrid and how, and I think that's the key element I picked up from you on is the internal combustion engine is good, but there's gaps, and that's where hybrid can fill in either power delivery, or extending the range, and that's where I see like my own personal cars complementing. I've got a supercharged V6, great engine, 300 some horsepower. But if I want to drive from here to Tennessee, I just want to put in the most efficient mode I can. And with that motor, I can get 38 miles to the gallon on a road like that. On a trip like that, and then if I want the power, then I can get 20 miles to the gallon if I wanted to. So that flexibility is pretty impressive for a vehicle.
But the other area where motorsports helps develop that technology that trickled down into your consumer car is the safety aspect.
Yeah,
a lot of people, like I remember those early articles that were definitely written by people with internal bias against Tesla motors about like Tesla's catching fire. It was like, dude, a battery is storing energy in chemical form. There's a lot of energy in those batteries. If that battery leaks out improperly, it's going to start a fire.
Gets punctured or shorted.
A lot of the negativity with flywheel storage, energy storage, is, well, it's a really high RPM piece of mass. And, if you put that under the driver's seat, what happens if the slightest piece of dust imbalances that flywheel? It frags.
It goes flying.
It'll blow up. But that's storing any energy. Anything that is storing a massive amount of energy has a way to catastrophically fail. And that catastrophic failure is the release of said energy.
Correct. So, Steve, the biggest takeaway is
hybrids. Hybrids are our future. Hybrids are going to develop all of the things. It's not gas. It's not electricity. or EVs. It's hybrids.
Hybrids.
We just got to make them way less
Yeah.
because now it's a complex system. Is that what we wanted to talk about?
Tell us about our today's sponsor.
Today's sponsor, Modern Machine Shop's Made in the USA podcast. Tune in for Modern Machine Shop's Made in the USA podcast to explore manufacturing issues faced by companies making an intentional choice to manufacture in the U.S. Featuring commentary from OEM leaders, Made in the USA blends its nearly century-long expertise with a unique audio storytelling experience to shine a spotlight on the past, present, and future of American manufacturing. Find Made in the USA on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcast platforms. Follow Modern Machine Shop on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Thanks, Steve. I got two great. I know we have a series of articles, and the first one I want to talk about is automation. You right there?
Yeah, I'm sick, so I'm like
Okay.
I'm trying to save the listeners from all my gross noises. That's why I'm turning away.
I appreciate that.
Like they don't want ASMR of fluids moving through my face.
So today I've got an article from smartindustry.com. It's about Rockwell Automation does a research report on consumer packaged goods. And one can argue, where does that relate to discrete manufacturing of durable goods? There's a lot of takeaways here that are, I think there's the same sentiment that our members in our industry is looking for, that parallels consumer packaged goods, high volume packaged goods here.
Right.
One of the first right off the bat is the economics of it. They say 52% of consumer packaged goods manufacturers see inflation as the biggest external obstacle in 2023.
Yeah.
And obviously that makes a lot of sense, right? Their raw goods, their raw material for their product that's a rising increase. But at the same time, our members buying sensors, spindles, raw material, even the manufacturers, they see a parallel to that.
Yeah.
So that's right off the bat, the economics, and I agree that that's going to hurt everyone in a little bit. But when we start talking about the technology, so 42% of the businesses are accelerating the digital transformation to keep pace with competitors. That's just keeping pace. So just shy under 50% see that they want to invest money into their digital transformation, while 44% are doing so to improve quality or maintain quality. And I think that's a subtle takeaway, right? So we've been, talking about digital transformation, digital efforts on the shop floor to see visibility, managing their equipment availability. But now we're seeing the shift on, okay, now we can get data from the end product that we've measured and inspect. Can we sustain that quality? So I thought it was a really good takeaway. Just over 1/5 of the operating budget on technology, with top 3 investments in cloud technology, supply chain planning, and cybersecurity. So
Those are all great places to spend.
those are all great places.
Make sure if your biggest weakness is inflation, let me get closer. If your biggest weakness, your biggest pain point is inflation, better focus on that supply chain, because that was one of the most recent things during the pandemic that really messed things up the most, and we're seeing the long-lasting effects now from the supply chain. It's causing that inflation. IP and cybersecurity, not just for your intellectual property, but cybersecurity, just because there's more and more people trying to get at your data and displace you of your funds than ever.
The economics of ransomware and the economics of bad actors is a thing now, right? We talked about it a couple episodes where, 15 years ago, cybersecurity was an issue of, a disgruntled employee or, a small group of people trying to steal data. Now it's an entire industry where it's easier to get access to a company that'll help you penetrate another company than it is to buy, something on Amazon. Yeah. It's surprising. And, the supply chain, I think, is a very important piece that you mentioned, that there are lessons learned from, the past couple of years. But what is the impact of poor supply chain planning, which cascades to inventory? But that's a cash flow issue, right? Either you're buying to overstock your inventory just to avoid that, or you can't produce enough goods. Well, in the end, that's the biggest impact I've seen to our companies. It's hurting your cash flow.
Well, all the issues with supply chain have really hurt and damaged a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And not in any individual, but it's just like
No, when you promise to
We're-
deliver
we're-
something and you don't deliver, that's
we were in
breaking
we
trust.
were in a period of where there's no such thing like the phrase is thrown around a lot, especially in like the automotive industry
Right.
of like parts bin
Sure.
parts. But today, in today's manufacturing world, there's no such thing as a parts bin. Everything is just in time.
Right.
And when you have everything just in time, there's a lot of trust.
Right.
There's a lot of trust.
Yep.
And for the longest time, that trust was never broken.
Yeah.
Like people were delivering, companies were delivering what they were supposed to deliver, and then one boat gets stuck in some canal. And,
Let's talk about trust because that came up
now I have to spend twice as much on lettuce.
in the future. I do want to talk about the trust and digital transformation.
I don't eat that much lettuce.
52% businesses are using software to automate processes, and 63% are using it to better track corporate data. And I think that's really cool too because everyone's keeping an eye on the factory floor, but let's talk about just managing the organization. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And 38% are expecting to repurpose their existing workforce, while 29% are assuming they'll hire more workers due to technology adoption. And I think that's a key takeaway too, is right. The concept of improving or adopting technology to replace workforce doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And this is, reinforcing that concept that as we improve and adopt technology to increase our efficiency, it raises everything in the factory.
As technology develops, it gets way more complicated.
Yep.
And humans aren't getting better.
Yep.
Like we are a technology that has not developed. I mean, sure, we have evolution and we are an adaptive species. We adapt to different conditions. But in terms of our hardware,
Yeah.
we're not developing the way the stuff that we make does.
Exactly.
And when a baby is born in a world of amazingly powerful and accurate CT scanners,
Right.
and that baby grows up and is tasked with the job of servicing a said CT scanner, you're not born with that information.
Right.
We have to hope that our education systems around the world are keeping up with the development of technology.
Yep.
And frankly, I don't mean to sound dismal, but
You're skeptical.
I doubt education is keeping up with technology.
Agreed.
And we're a part of a development of a classist system. We're not classist. Well, fortunately, in the United States, we're not very classist, but if that education doesn't get out to everybody,
Right.
it's going to separate,
I think the biggest, so there's a minor counterpoint to that. So
Okay.
like writing code, that's the thing that occurs in elementary school now.
That's awesome.
So things like that,
That's good.
I see a layer being pushed down, and that's where we're testing to see how early technology can be adopted in someone's life cycle. So writing code, it's very similar to learning another language. So that can be adopted very early in someone's life. But the pace of changing technology in education, that's a big concern I have because I think in industry, past 10 years or so, we've seen technology being developed faster, and the ones that are able to harness and see value as an early adopter are adopting them faster. And I see that as a weakness in education, where to change from, writing JavaScript to Python to R, I don't know that they're being able to change pace as fast as industry is changing to the different technologies. So we'll get into that more. We'll talk to Kat about that.
Okay.
The last one I want to touch on, because I do like this a little bit. 95% of manufacturers have environmentally sound processes or initiatives. So
Okay.
what they're trying to do is improve their sustainability model. 44% are producing sustainability models as a differentiator in the market.
Right.
So we talk about technology, but one thing that I love to connect technology with is sustainability. And that is an interesting takeaway here that, they see that as a differentiator in the marketplace so they can grow their business.
Right.
So that's cool. Thanks, Smart Industry. Steve,
Yes, sir.
Meta, OpenAI, comedy.
Oh man,
Tell me more.
this is a fun one. So my first article that I want to talk today from Fortune. Meta and OpenAI are facing lawsuits from comedian Sarah Silverman and others.
I like Sarah
I like Sarah too.
in small doses.
This this is really fun for me because I am torn.
Okay.
I really like comedy and
Yeah.
I understand the way the comedy industry works.
Right.
It's very self-regulated.
Yes.
There's no US patent office for protecting jokes.
Department of Jokes.
Yeah, there's no Department of Jokes. There's like and it's very self-regulating
Yeah.
in that like if somebody steals your joke, you have to tell other people,
Yep.
other comedians, and if they catch it, if it catches on, it's a lot of lobbying, which is crazy. It's a lot of
Yes.
self-lobbying
Right.
and getting other comedians on your side
Yep.
and getting venues
Yep.
on your side too. And I mean, there's a lot of just as an example, in the mid 2000s, the comedian Dane Cook.
Right.
I loved Dane Cook
Yeah.
when I was listening.
He was
to him.
hot.
He was blowing up really fast. He was, I think, one of the first comedians to totally sell out Madison Square Garden.
That's an honor.
only been done by 3 comedians. Dane Cook is one of them. I'm pretty sure Dave Chappelle is another, and I don't know who the third one is.
Sure.
But it's a lot of people to put in to sell out
For one comedian. Yes.
for one comedian. Dane Cook did it.
Yep.
He was unstoppable. He was effectively like VW, when during Dieselgate.
Right.
I'm sorry. That stuff with the TDIs should
Right.
have killed VW.
Yes.
VW should not be around today. But because of that. That should have been a crippling
Right.
controversy.
Yep.
They're fine.
Yeah, they're all right.
They're not going anywhere.
Except for the engineers.
They
that
had to lay off, I don't know how many, and they had to pay like $13 billion in fines and stuff.
and I think a couple of
And
engineers,
they shrugged it off.
went to jail for that.
Hopefully, we'll see. Hopefully, it's like real jail
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
like a corporate criminal jail.
Right.
Where it's like, all right, this is your new house.
Yeah.
You can't leave.
But they're still existing. The company moved on.
There's some baked ziti in the oven ready for you when you're good. It's probably one of those jails,
Yeah.
No, Dane Cook. His infringement wasn't nearly as egregious as Amy Schumer or Carlos Mencia.
Okay.
Those guys, and both Amy Schumer and Carlos Mencia got really big at one point. They didn't sell out Madison Square Garden, but when Dave Chappelle had his mental breakdown and left the industry. Actually, I'm so sorry. He did not have a mental breakdown. He got really screwed by a contract with Comedy Central, and
Right.
everything done with the Chappelle show, he gets no royalties for.
That's a bummer.
He signed that work away,
So
and
he
it's
just left.
gold.
Yeah.
It's gold work.
So he
It's-
decided to leave.
It's his magnum opus, and
Right.
all he has to it is that his name is on it.
Right.
He gets
Right.
nothing from it. All the money goes to Comedy Central and HBO.
Yep.
It's really sad. That's why he left. And then Carlos Mencia, seeing what had happened and stealing other comedians' joke. He was a notorious joke thief,
Right.
and nobody ever did anything about it.
Yep.
Well, they were trying to, but he would only pick on little people
Sure.
that he didn't think would really get in there. Then he stole a few jokes from some bigger comedians, and eventually he was out.
Yep.
But he was lying about everything. Like
Right.
he had changed his name for comedy, and that's normal in entertainment
Sure.
to have like a pen name and stuff. But Carlos Mencia, Amy Schumer was in movies all over. She was in a movie with John Cena. She gets wind, or everybody gets wind that she stole some jokes. She's gone.
That was a good movie.
This is like the comedy. The comedy industry has like the most insane cancel culture, and I hate calling it that because cancel culture has this negative connotation to it, and comedy is like protection of IP.
That's-
is very strong.
Yes.
and it's really tight knit, and I think it's cool how
Yep.
self-regulating it is, especially considering there's no U.S. Department of Jokes.
And I think that's the takeaway is that they're self-regulating because their IP is them, right?
Yeah.
Whatever they say is a reflection of their business. And when someone steals it and they're making money off that.
Right.
That's a core problem. And
Right.
I think them being able to ostracize and move those people out of that industry is an important factor of the
Exactly.
comedy industry.
And that's why Sarah Silverman and probably some other comedians are a little concerned with AI's large language models, using some of their content,
Right.
some of their bits
Yep.
to help write their own.
That's the crux of the problem that I'm seeing reoccurring on these large implementations of AI is that the training set that's used to develop this is massive, which is
Yeah.
cool, but some of it's coming from copywritten material.
Right.
Some of it's coming like protected IP, and that's a little interesting because the economics related to that, where Meta or OpenAI could be making revenue off of a training set that is developed off of copywritten material.
Right. Well, Meta is no stranger to this. Meta, they're when you sign up for Facebook, they let you know, hey, any photos you upload to Facebook are it's our property now.
Correct.
Like, it doesn't
Correct.
belong to you.
Correct.
You may have taken it, you may be tagged in it, it may be on your profile, but technically we own it now.
Yep.
And like nobody reads that. Nobody knows
Nope.
that. Yeah, Meta's no stranger to this stuff. They are the classic robbers of IP.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure their defense is, well, you signed up for it. It's like, dude, if you're on a train and somebody is robbing the train, like, and they've got a gun held to you, but you really need to be on that train to get somewhere,
Right.
it's like,
Eh,
yeah, I'm going to I need to get somewhere, and
Yeah.
I also need to not die. So I'm going to willingly give you my watch and whatever's in my wallet.
Yep.
So, like, it's the same thing.
it's a weird argument. That's why I don't post anything on Facebook.
Yeah, Meta
But it's interesting that
sucks.
the biggest takeaway is Zuck sucks.
Yeah.
Steve, the article.
Well, I
Yeah.
just want to. What's interesting about this article and why I have so much excitement with it, because I really am torn. I love
Yeah.
comedy. I respect that these comedians, are very protective over their delivery.
Right.
It's not just the joke; it's also the delivery,
Correct.
the style. You don't want to copy that
Yep.
from somebody; they will have you canceled. But I'm also really pro AI.
Right.
But I'm also the first person to tell anybody, as pro AI as I am, I'm also the first person to say AI needs a lot of regulation.
Yeah.
And that's why OpenAI is super slow with everything that they do.
Right.
Because they know they're playing with fire. They're quite what they're doing is the other companies don't know it. Send Meta to hell.
Well,
but
they're playing the Volkswagen game where if they get caught, they'll just pay their fines and move on. They'll pay the $1 billion to move
you're
on.
absolutely right. They have the billions.
But I think that's the biggest, the important takeaway is the legislation of how we manage economics related to these large language
Yeah.
models and large AI tools. Something's got to change.
Right.
Yeah. Technology, man. That's not easy.
Technology ain't easy.
I've got
Techin ain't easy.
an article
We got our
from
title.
manmonthly.com, and it's called Man Monthly because manufacturing monthly. So it's not man as in the sex.
I mean, you called Dane Cook hot earlier.
His career was hot.
There's nothing wrong with a one man thinking another man is hot.
Embracing additive to move forward. So this article covers a company in Western Australia. Back to our favorite manufacturing base.
Australia. Yeah.
Previously, they were heavily in oil and gas and mining. And what the article goes over is how they were able to bring additive to grow their portfolio into different sectors in their manufacturing space. And I really like the article because it hits on a couple of key elements. One is, as a manufacturer, and I think a lot of people like myself forget how big Australia is and how remote some of the places. It's not a big population in Australia, and it's very close in percentage to the size of the U.S.
Right.
So if you're in Western Australia, you may not get a mail delivery for like days on end because how remote you are.
Yeah.
So they're using additive to help supplement supply chain issues that they're running into, and we see that occurring experiments in Department of Defense also as
Right.
These far-reaching remote areas where it may be tough to get 500 pounds of brass as a raw material. and if you can, you may get it the wrong size, or you're machining for days on end to get the small piece. But using additive to get the raw material, and you could probably stock that longer, and supplementing your supply chain is an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
And it hits on another key element where the skills required for 3D printing are not just load a machine and hit print. It's the entire ecosystem of modeling, managing, design for manufacturing for additive. Because additive is not just printing. It's printing, subtractive, finishing, getting to a finished good. And it talks about, through that entire life cycle, managing your growth into additive, and you're going to find a lot of flaws and constraints in that. And how do you develop your skills to overcome those as you're developing your business for it?
You said that the same, and I've heard Tim say the same thing, because I once described additive as loading your file and clicking print. And I'm sorry, I still think it is that way.
Sure.
Because if it wasn't that easy,
right.
you wouldn't have elementary school. If it was that easy, or if it wasn't that easy, you wouldn't have elementary school students at home with 3D printers printing off random pieces of garbage. I'm not saying that their prints are like what they expected them to be.
Right.
I'm sure anybody with an at-home 3D printer has made more garbage than they've made actual parts that they've wanted to use, but they've still been able to do it.
Right.
If 3D printing is just as hard as CNC milling, why aren't there more desktop CNC mills that elementary school students are chipping away at parts with?
And that's a good thought experiment, because
it's because it is easy.
When I went to the local library to print a couple of Christmas gifts, I gave them a file. They said, I can print this. Come back in a day. It's $3. Great. Came back. I spent 20 hours trying to remove support material.
Dang.
So subtleties like that, you only understand once you go through that process. And if I had a machine, I could have said, okay, I'm going to print this. Now I need to set it up to go through and remove everything. But I'm sitting here with the needle nose pliers removing support material and, little letters that I printed.
Right.
So that's where we run into the subtleties of, yes, that technology exists, but the product life cycle of that entire process isn't fully rationalized until you go through some of those pains. Yeah. And I think that's a big takeaway, is that, as a manufacturer, you can produce more, or you can produce more complex. And they're, shifting their industry to get to the more complex parts, but also supplement their supply chain issues to produce more of those parts. So I think that's where additive is an interesting approach. That was a good article. I liked it.
Respect.
You've got another one on
more AI.
I love it. Let's do it.
What's really funny about this, what first caught me about this article is the picture in the thumbnail. It looks like a robot version of Cillian Murphy. Like just the crazy eyes that guy has, and like the jaw structure.
Yep.
Whatever. Science Alert posted an article called "AI Robots Admit They'd Run the Earth Better Than Clouded Humans."
Oh man,
what's the problem?
They're throwing down.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
What do they mean better? Tell me more about this.
I don't know. What they mean better, but like who would question that?
I would question that if they mean better by replacing me or removing me.
Okay. I'm not trying to get dark with it like that. But I'm just saying, like, you could be a CEO of some company that is genuinely, I know they all at TechCrunch disrupt all these startups saying, we're just trying to make the world a better place. No, you're not. You're trying to make money. But I digress. CEO, let's say you're the CEO of a major tech company.
Right.
And this tech company is actually making the world a better place.
Sure.
Let's say they're actually doing this. This is for the first time ever, they're actually making the world a better place and not just trying to make money.
Yeah.
And, it's the weekend.
Yeah.
You're the CEO. You're probably worth at least a couple billion.
Sure.
If it's a major tech company making the world a better place, probably a couple billion.
Sure.
Are you driving to the unhinged now?
I think when we start using the term AI, we should start using what knowledge set that AI is built on. So when you use OpenAI, like the large natural language model, because I think we're mature enough, because I was thinking about like when I do text to speech, technically that is an artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithm. You know, that's a subset of AI. So when we say AI, I like the text to speech when it works on my phone.
Yeah.
That's significantly different than using OpenAI's tool.
Doesn't TikTok have the text to speech AI? So like you put in text and it has that dumb voice.
Oh yeah,
That lady's voice.
Yeah.
POV. My golden doodles, crazy. Like that voice, that TikTok voice.
That's a rough voice.
First off, I don't have TikTok.
I just signed up. I'm squatting on my username.
I'm offended. Oh,
I don't want people taking my username.
That's smart with an O. That's smart. I get that.
I got a brand.
No, but like, dude, that TikTok voice. And
thanks to our sponsor, Modern Machine Shop, Made in the USA podcast, for sponsoring today's episode.
Sick.
Steve, where can they find more info about us?
amtonline.org/resources. Like, share, subscribe. And I'm emphasizing that because I found out from our audience team that actually helps. And some of you actually do it. You can even dislike it. Apparently that helps us just as much as a like. If you didn't like what you heard today, give us a dislike. You're still helping the algorithm.
Help Steve out.
One dislike at a time.
I need an antibiotic.
Bye, everyone.
Oh.